You mentioned assigning. How do you assign an umpire crew? Like, how do you determine which umpire crew goes where? Who does the postseason? Um, is there like geography involved? Kind of go into that. How the
Sure,
assignment works.
sure. So kind of as I spoke about before, our organization goes from really umpires working, say, like Little League to umpires working at the Division 1 level. So we are lucky enough in most of our geography to be developing umpires from the first time they ever step onto a field, through that process and hopefully get them to a trained place where they can be a higher level collegiate baseball umpire. And through that process, we're consistently evaluating the umpires, and those type of things take place in season at games, at collegiate games. But the things that probably a lot of people don't see is the training that umpires go through, week long weekend trainings, and then also just games that they're working during the downtime. So our summer collegiate baseball, or even some of the bigger tournament providers like Perfect Game and Prep Baseball Report, umpires are working at those types of places to continue to improve. And a lot of times get in front of people like John Porter and Chris Marshall and myself, who have a lot to say in the organization about who goes where, when, and why. And obviously, when you have an organization like that, like we have, you're placing umpires in different spots at different times based on geography, and then also, based on the goals of the umpires. So we have umpires who are aspiring to Division 3 postseason, and those are your umpires that are going to be working conference tournaments, and they're going to be typically your crew chiefs in your two umpire series on the weekends. So and part of that assigning process has to do with, okay, what are the pairings that make the most sense from an umpire standpoint? I mean, as we know, I think you know you're going to have a situation where every weekend you're not going to have two Division 3 postseason umpires on every series in every Division 3 conference. So my job and Chris's job is to look at that and say, how do we make the staff the strongest to most benefit the schools, the conferences, and make a good experience for the student athletes? And that's a process that we take a lot of pride in, and that's why our scheduling process starts probably in September.
Yeah.
And we're starting to look at, okay, this weekend, what is it? How many matchups are there? How many conferences are playing? Who's playing conference, especially at this time of the year where different conferences may get that first weekend in at different spots. So, how do we get this umpire into a certain number of Division 3 conference weekends? And maybe it's the United East, which happens to start really early. Your conference play, I think, started the 17th, 18th, and 19th this year,
Yeah.
which was maybe a week or even 2 or 3 ahead of some of the others. So, how do we get a umpire into that conference and other conferences so that they're eligible for multiple conference tournaments? And then, the feedback process throughout the season is one where we're talking to observers that we have. Obviously, I'm out some, Chris is out some. Live stream has done a whole lot for umpire evaluation. And then the feedback loop kind of gets closed with the coaches. Their opinion, of course, matters as well. What umpires have they had successful relationships with? What were the strengths there? Why have they had some relationships that haven't been gone so well? What was the weakness? Was it a personality? Was it not performing up to par? How do we look to improve those things? How do we put the best umpires in the conference tournament? How do we get the best umpires from the United East into the NCAA tournament, and hopefully have representatives at the World Series level from this conference and the other conferences that we represent?
For sure. No, that's a great explanation, honestly.